Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Welcome to the course Nutrition for the Family. This is the last module in which we are studying about nutritional care for the adolescents. And this is the second and last lecture of this module, that is about dietary requirements and problems of adolescents. I am Dr. Jaspreet Kaur, presently working as Associate Professor in Government College for Girls, Ludhiana, Punjab, affiliated to Punjab University, Chandigarh, and this project is funded by DTH Swayam Prabha, MHRD, New Delhi. In the previous lecture, we had studied about the physical, physiological, social and psychological changes during adolescence. And we also studied about the macronutrient requirements, that is energy, carbohydrates, proteins and fats. And then we studied about the micronutrient requirements and we started with the minerals. In this lecture, we shall be continuing with the micronutrient requirement of the adolescents, and we will study about the recommendations for vitamins, which are water soluble vitamins and the fat soluble vitamins, and we will also study about the water requirement during this period. And then we will study about the dietary pattern of the adolescents, what are the factors affecting them, and how they affect the nutritional status of the adolescent. We will study about the dietary guidelines for the adolescents. We will also study about the eating disorders among adolescents. And lastly, we will see what are the common nutritional problems related to this period. Recommendations for vitamins. Let us talk about water soluble vitamins first. So the B vitamins, that is B1, B2 and B3, that is thiamine, riboflavin and niacin, their needs are more, which are directly proportional to the caloric intake. And along with that, folic acid and vitamin B12, that is cyanocobalamin, they are essential for the DNA synthesis. That is why they are needed in higher amount when the tissue synthesis is occurring rapidly. As we have seen that during the adolescence, all these changes, they are occurring at a very fast pace. And tissue growth, it involves amino acid metabolism, especially transamination. What is transamination? This is a process to synthesize non-essential amino acids by the body. So requirement of vitamin B6 increases because this vitamin is associated with the protein metabolism. And along with that, premenstrual tension can be reduced if the adolescent girls, they consume vitamin B6, say around 100 milligrams daily. And vitamin C, it should be taken in adequate amount to ensure good absorption of iron coming from the non-heme food sources. The skeletal growth, it requires vitamin D, whereas the structural and functional integrity of these newly formed cells, they depend upon availability of vitamin A, vitamin C and vitamin E. So for vitamin A, the recommendations, they are to meet the needs of growing bones, for making proper vision, for the good skin, and tolerable upper limit of vitamin A for 10 to 12-year-old boys and girls is same, that is 1700 micrograms daily, and for 13 to 18-year-old children or adolescents, it is 2800 micrograms per day. And if we talk about vitamin D, the tolerable upper limit is 600 international units. That amounts to equivalent to 15 micrograms per day. And for vitamin C, for 10 to 12-year-old boys, the tolerable upper limit is 1050 milligrams, and for girls, it is 1300 milligrams. And for 13 to 15-year-old boys, it is 1550 milligrams, which can be handled safely by them. And for girls, they can tolerate 1800 milligrams of vitamin C. And for the last group, that is 16 to 18-year-old boys, 1950 milligrams is the upper limit. And for girls, it is 2000 milligrams of vitamin C. This table shows the recommendation of vitamin B1, B2, B3, B6 and folate requirements. As we have seen, from 10 to 18 years, the thiamine, it is needed in milligrams, riboflavin and niacin and pyridoxine, all of them, they are needed in the milligrams. And these are the estimated average requirement and RDAs for these vitamins. And regarding folic acid, folate, the requirements are in the micrograms, where the EAR and RDA for 10 to 18 years is between 180 to 223 micrograms, and RDA, if we add safety margin, it is 220 to 270 micrograms daily. These are the recommendations for vitamin B12, that is cyanocobalamin, and for 10 to 12-year-old to 16 to 18-year-old, it is same. The estimated average requirement is 2 micrograms and an RDA is 2.2 micrograms. And for vitamin C, between 10 to 18 years, it is ranging from 45 and 60 and 70 milligrams for boys, and for girls it is 44 and then 55 and 57 milligrams as an estimated average requirement for the girls. And an RDA, when we add safety margin, it is 55, 70 and 85 milligrams for boys, and 50, 65 and 70 milligrams for girls. And same is the case, but vitamin A recommendation, it is in the micrograms, and as we can see, the range is from 360 to 430 and then 480, and for girls it is 370, 420 and 400 micrograms when we consider estimated average requirement. And after safety margin, it goes up to 1000 in case of boys and 860 microgram in case of girls. And regarding vitamin D, it is recommended in international units, IU. The EAR and RDA is same for boys and girls from 10 to 18-year-old, that is 400 international units for EAR and an RDA of 600 international unit for boys and girls between 10 to 18 years. Adolescents, they usually drink less water. The RDA 2020 guidelines, they have already given recommendation for various age groups and for these adolescents. So here is a chart which indicates the requirement of water for 10 to 18-year boys and girls. So the first group is for boys and the second group is for girls. Let us see. This is the total body weight. These are the calorie requirements, and the total water requirement in milliliters for the first group of boys, that is 10 to 12 years, it is 3300 milliliters, and for second group 13 to 15, it is 4200 milliliters, and for 16 to 18-year-old 4500 milliliter water is required. For girls, the requirements are 3050, 3500, ml and 3700 ml for 10 to 12 years, 13 to 15 years, and 16 to 18 years girls. And along with that, there are recommendations that water coming from the food is also included in that. So water in the food is hidden in the water. When we are cooking any vegetable, when we are eating any fruit, there is water coming along with that. So these are the recommendations for the water coming from the food, and rest of the requirement it can be met by taking water from the beverages. Now it can be hot or cold beverages in the form of soup, in the form of shake, in the form of any kind of hot or cold beverages. Among adolescents, the influences on the dietary habits, they are numerous. The growing independence during this age, it increases participation in social life, and generally the schedule gets busier with the activities, and they have a great impact on the food intake by these adolescents. Breakfast is frequently neglected, and it is omitted more often by the teenagers. And the teenage girls, they might be skipping lunch also, which is generally skipped to control the weight. And their diets are usually unbalanced, and they lack any discipline. The concern about the size and shape of the body, then sexual development, vitality, skin condition, attractiveness, that is the main focus. So along with that, there is sense of freedom to make their own decisions, and this is reflected in the choice of the food by these adolescents. Then family conflicts and emotional problems, they may also arise because of feeling of social inadequacy and pressure from the school and college work. So the appetite is great in the adolescents, but the meal times are irregular. They are due to their preoccupancy in other things, such as they are busy in the social media, they are busy with their friends or dating, and along with that, snacking in between meals, it is very common. And the snack, it should be wholesome, and it should not be providing only energy, but it should also provide proteins and other essential nutrients. But these adolescents, unless they are aware, they tend to take the faulty foods. The physical and psychosocial pressures, they influence the adolescents' eating habits. Boys, they fare better than the girls. This is because they have larger appetites and volume of food. So it leads to consumption of adequate nutrients. The adolescent girls, they may gain weight easily because of their physiological and sexual differences, which are associated with higher fat depositions during this period, and comparatively lack of physical activity. And along with that, there are social pressures and personal tensions which concern and make the child conscious of her figure, and then she will start following some unwise self-imposed crash diets, and she can go for weight loss at any cost. And self-starvation of this kind, it can result to many complex and far-reaching eating disorders. It could be anorexia nervosa or bulimia nervosa. Teenagers, they are particularly vulnerable to the advertising messages which are related to the food. So most of these foods, they are rich in energy and fat and sugar, and they might be lacking other important essential nutrients. And there is also tendency to get ready-made food, as fast food outlets and food stores, they attract them a lot. And the fast food, it should be used judiciously as a part of well balanced diet, but it should not be a replacement to the normal diet pattern. And adolescents, they should otherwise be encouraged to exercise their choice and responsibility in the selection of foods. Another concern during this stage is their sedentary behavior, coupled with the increased tendency to consume the energy dense fast foods. And along with that, irregular eating pattern and unhealthy food choices, it predisposes adolescents to the risk of becoming overweight and obese in their adulthood. So therefore, they should be encouraged to go for physical activity and they should make healthy food choices, and we should encourage them to be physically active during this phase. Adolescents, they should be encouraged to go for home cooked food because it has tremendous benefits. The first thing is we have a complete control over what goes into that food and dish and how we are going to prepare it. And secondly, food can be prepared with sugar free, gluten free, or with less oil or less salt, or we can make any kind of changes. And food can be prepared with the high fiber and plenty of antioxidant rich vegetables. They can be used to make it healthy, and then fresh ingredients, they can be included because we ourselves will be collecting the ingredients and making them. So along with our choice, we can prepare it hygienically and we can use the spices and the herbs as per our choice. And there is satisfaction in preparation and consumption of the homemade food, and it is desirable also because it is less expensive and it helps in forming good eating habits among children and adolescents. Diet during this period is very significant because it influences the nutritional status later in the life. So the adequate, well-balanced nutritious food, it should be taken to prevent obesity or undernutrition. The diet should also contain sufficient energy sources to meet the increased energy requirements. And an adolescent girl, she should take enough calcium-rich foods in her diet to increase her bone density and prevent the osteoporosis. And with increase in these calcium requirements, extra milk can be provided if possible. And for these children who are coming from the lower socioeconomic section, cheaper calcium rich sources, they can be provided. For example, parched grains, they can be given. Whole grain cereals, pulses, and green leafy vegetables, they can be included as calcium sources. No meal of the day should be missed, as adolescents, they represent a period of active life and junk food should be avoided. There should be good variety in colors, texture, and flavor. The adolescents, they are quite fussy, and especially girls, about eating at home. So meals, if they are attractive, it will encourage them to eat at home. And empty calories coming from the various foods such as carbonated beverages, they should be avoided. And girls, they tend to be anemic as their iron requirements, they increase tremendously. So this increased iron requirement, it should be covered up, taken care by providing green leafy vegetables, whole grain cereals, pulses, and if possible, the non-vegetarian sources which are good sources of heme iron such as egg, meat, liver, and fish, they can be included. And calorie and protein coming from the food, it should be taken accordingly to support the growth spurt. And inclusion of fruits and vegetable in the diet, it will meet the vitamin and mineral needs, and along with that it will take care of the fiber requirements also. Eating habits, they should be independent of emotions. The meals should be served in a pleasant atmosphere so that the child is able to enjoy his food. And the parents, they should encourage the adolescents to cook the nutritious and tasty food at home only. And home-based diet, they are best for the children and adolescents, and we need to encourage them to do certain physical activity, particularly the outdoor games, and this will regulate their appetite. Likes and dislikes, they should also be considered. The socioeconomic status of the family should be kept in mind. An adolescent from the low socioeconomic status, he may want to copy his classmates when the high socioeconomic status child, he purchases high cost snacks. To avoid that, they should be given cheap and attractive and nutritious snacks in the tiffin only. So if the tiffin is given, it should be nutritionally balanced, and it should be a good replacement of main meal with a good quality nutritious snack. As we know, these adolescents, they do not wish to take plain water. So seasonal drinks like cold or soft drinks like jaljeera, chach, nimbu pani, nariyal pani, etc., along with tea or coffee can be included to make the diet interesting. And the satiety value of the diet, it should be taken care of, especially for the boys, because they are always hungry and they are seeking something to eat time after time. So if they are hungry after the main meal, then salad or soup or nuts or dry fruits, they can be provided to them so that they do not indulge in the harmful food items or the junk foods. And snacking in between meals, it is also common among adolescents. So the snack should be wholesome. It should not be a source of energy only, but it should provide protein and other essential nutrients. For example, chila, idli, dhokla, things like that, along with fruits they can be given. Let us discuss about eating disorders among the adolescents which impact the health and well-being of this age group. Binge eating, it is a disorder which is characterized by consumption of large amount of food in a small amount of time, and it can start at any age group. The individual suffering from this is either overweight or obese and suffer from certain disorders like high blood pressure, hypercholesterolemia, or type 2 diabetes. The food habits of binge eating involve frequent dieting with erratic increase in the weight, or there will be erratic decrease in the weight. Eating only when very hungry, or eating at the point of extreme discomfort, or consuming large amount during a short time. And they will be avoiding food at social gatherings, and they will be eating only small amount in front of others. They are either avoiding physical activity or anything that invites attention, or increased awareness about their own body is another symptom of this binge eating. They show certain psychological changes and signs which include depression, loneliness, guilt or shame, and having a low self-esteem. And they are not able to control whenever they are eating, and they are unable to stop the binges also. Being preoccupied with the dieting, body weight or food, so both psychological and the nutritional counseling, it is extremely important for binge eaters. Anorexia nervosa is another eating disorder. It is characterized by refusal to eat, and there is huge loss of body weight. And this is more common among adolescent girls when they try to avoid eating food due to over consciousness of their figure and social stress. They appear extremely thin and emaciated due to rapid weight loss, and they complain of nausea, vomiting, and bloating after consuming normal food. The girls, they suffer from loss of menstruation in that cases because of severe undernutrition. They refuse to eat, and they deny hunger, and they eat tiny portions of the food. They rigidly avoid specific foods like meat and milk. They exercise heavily and show a different behavior while eating, such as using special utensils while eating, or cutting food with fine pieces, or eating very small spoons at a time. Another eating disorder is bulimia nervosa. It is an emotional disorder which is characterized by distorted body image and an obsessive desire to lose weight. And this happens with the bout of extreme overeating, which is followed by fasting or self-induced vomiting or purging. And this is quite in contrast to the anorexia nervosa, Bulimia nervosa is a eating disorder which is characterized by periods of binging, that means eating in the excess, and purging, that means the complete removal of food, and developing unrealistic ideas about the food. The bulimic adolescents, they eat large quantities of food and then they get rid of that food, and the consequences are, because of repeated induced vomiting, this can erode the dental enamel due to the acid of the stomach, and then the dental cavities, they can occur. They will be having swollen cheeks, and there will be callus on the back of their hands, and they will be feeling weak and fatigued due to malnutrition. And the females, they have irregular menstrual period, again because of malnutrition. So these are the important eating disorders. Now let us discuss some important dietary deficiency disorder among these adolescents. There is an increasing trend towards decrease in the age of menarche, which is indicated by many scientific studies. And it is happening both in the upper socioeconomic strata as well as in the lower socioeconomic strata and among the rural and urban communities. Now, this trend is making adolescent girls susceptible to anemia. About 20 to 25% of adolescent girls, they suffer from anemia irrespective of their social class. And the impact is more profound in the rural girls because of non-availability of healthy foods, and likes and dislikes and the eating disorders, they all lead to anemia. So it is recommended that the adolescents, including boys, especially girls, they should include good amount of iron rich food items coming from different type of food sources, that is including green leafy vegetables, whole grains, nuts, so that they can meet the increased need of iron. And along with that, if they are non-vegetarians, they should include the heme iron sources in their diet. Overweight and obesity, it affects around 10 to 20% of the adolescent population, and this figure is on rise with the increasing time and the changing dietary pattern of developed countries, and now it is happening in the developing countries like ours. And lack of exercise, it is the real culprit. So it is not the excess calorie consumption, but less physical exercise, which is causing overweight and obesity among all the age groups, including these adolescents. And once the child or the adolescent becomes overweight, he becomes reluctant to participate in the physical activities because he feels he's being judged for his looks. So the obesity, it may also be due to certain hormonal imbalances, emotional stress, or some family habits. So it is the duty of the family to work on containing the overweight and obesity by taking balanced diet. Adolescents, they contribute around 20% of the total growth in the height, and up to 40 to 50% of the body weight with respect to the somatic growth. So it is a very important phase of the life when we talk about the physical growth. And undernutrition during this phase, along with, if the child is getting married at a very younger age, it can lead to high mortality and morbidity among the women and the children, and it also creates a vicious circle of undernutrition where the mother, she will be underweight and she will be giving birth to an underweight child, and again that underweight child will be an underweight adult. So this vicious circle will be formed. Many studies, they have indicated that the among the upper socioeconomic strata, the causes of undernutrition could be personal likes and dislikes of the child, or the adolescent might be taking some fad diets, or there is poor selection of the foods, or because of certain emotional disturbances. But among the low socioeconomic strata, it is more common in the girls who are not that preferred when they are comparing with the male siblings. So the focus is on the nutrition of the male child. And along with that, poor energy intake by these girls or inability to afford sufficient food could be reasons of this undernutrition. So therefore, participating in the midday meal program and getting the benefit of that, along with that, choosing some low cost nutritious foods, they can be really helpful in this case. Micronutrient deficiency disorders in adolescent phase, they result in the growth retardation, low immunity and impaired reproductive functions. Iodine, which is essential for the normal growth and the development of human brain and the body. So adolescents, they should meet the iodine requirement through the fortified salt. Its deficiency can cause hypothyroidism or the goiter. Acne vulgaricus. These are a common concern among the adolescents, and about 80% of the teens, they experience acne. Scientific studies, they have been unable to show a strong link between any dietary factor and acne. And adolescents, they are warned to avoid junk foods like nuts, chocolates, pizzas, chips, candies, and ice creams, assuming that the planning a well-balanced diet without these is possible. So the main culprit of acne is over acidity of the sebaceous glands in the skin, and blockage and duct in the gland. It can lead to infection and localized pressure, resulting in the acne lesion. The teenage mothers, they are considered to be high risk as maternal death and infant mortality rates, they are high among them. The biological immaturity, it has a great impact on the pregnancy. So the malnutrition, it sets in when the pregnant adolescent girl fails to meet the demand of not only her own growth, but also that of the fetus. And it has a direct bearing on the outcome of pregnancy. And lactation failure, it is also common among such cases. Teenage mothers, they fail to breastfeed their infants adequately. This results in high infant morbidity rate. Another problem could be premenstrual symptoms. They are common among the adolescents, which are characterized by physical and psychological symptoms which occur 7 to 10 days prior to the onset of periods, and they disappear within the first day or 2 days of menstrual flow. This include weight gain, abdominal discomfort, and then breast pain or tenderness, constipation, peripheral edema, swelling, and then headache, irritability, anxiety, depression, tension, fatigue, or lack of concentration, increased appetite, craving for the sweet or salty foods. Now, management of this premenstrual symptom, it involves reassurance and exercise along with certain dietary modification. And it is a good idea to add vitamins, especially B vitamins and alpha linolenic acid rich foods to get rid of these symptoms. Let's summarize what we have studied regarding nutrition care during adolescence in these two lectures. We studied about the physical, physiological, social and psychological changes during adolescence. And then we studied about the macronutrient requirements, in which we studied about the energy requirement, protein requirement, fat, carbohydrate, fiber, and then we studied about the micronutrient requirements of minerals, and in this lecture we studied about the vitamin requirements of water soluble and fat soluble vitamins, and then we studied about the water requirements of adolescents. We studied about the dietary pattern, dietary guidelines, and eating disorders during this period, and lastly we studied about the nutritional problems of adolescents. This finishes the module. nutrition care during adolescence, and it also finishes our course Nutrition for the Family. Thank you very much.